Stop scrolling, because what you're about to see isn't normal. There are real people who walked on wires between skyscrapers with no safety, survived being completely covered in live bees, survived being buried alive, and even flew through the sky at nearly 400 kilometers per hour with nothing but a suit. And that's just the beginning, because some of the most dangerous human records ever created. And by the end, you'll realize these aren't just records. They're 27 moments where humans almost broke reality itself. 1. A thin steel cable hung high above a city skyline. Far below were tiny streets, moving cars, and certain death. One man stepped onto the wire with no safety harness at all. The wind pushed against him as he slowly walked between two giant towers. Then, unbelievably, he started sitting, dancing, and even lying down on the cable as thousands watched in horror. 2. A man stood below a giant cliff so tall it looked impossible to climb. No ropes, no safety gear. One wrong move meant death. People watched in silence as he slowly climbed higher, using only his fingertips. For almost 4 hours, he fought gravity with nothing but balance and courage. One tiny slip could have ended everything. But somehow, he reached the top alive. 3. The man who balanced a car. Imagine placing an entire car on your head. Sounds impossible, right? One strong man actually did it. As the heavy vehicle was lowered onto him, the crowd went silent. Every second felt dangerous. If his balance failed for even a moment, his neck could snap instantly. 4. Flying faster than fear. Jumping from a plane already sounds insane. But one pilot pushed it beyond human limits. Wearing only a wingsuit, he dropped through the sky at almost 400 kilometers per hour. At that speed, the air feels solid. Mountains flashed past him in seconds, and one mistake would have meant instant disaster. 5. The human bee swarm. Most people panic when one bee gets too close, but one man covered himself with hundreds of thousands of live bees on purpose. Within minutes, his body completely disappeared under a moving layer of insects. Even his face was hidden. The weight kept growing, but he never moved. One sudden reaction could have turned the swarm deadly. 6. Diving into crushing darkness. One diver took a single deep breath, then disappeared into the ocean. No oxygen tank, no backup air, just darkness and pressure strong enough to crush the human body. As he kept sinking deeper and deeper, people wondered if he would ever return to the surface alive. 7. The woman who changed the impossible. There was a time when one woman received a terrifying truth. Doctors warned her that her condition was so severe, her life might not last much longer. Her weight had reached a level that made even simple movement a struggle. Most people in that situation would have felt like everything was over. But she didn't. Instead of accepting defeat, she made a decision that would change everything. She started fighting back. One day at a time. No shortcuts, no miracle solution. Just years of discipline, pain, and persistence. At the beginning, every step was difficult. Every change felt impossible. But she kept going anyway. Slowly, her life began to shift. What once seemed like an impossible situation started turning into progress. Then into transformation. Months turned into years. And then, something almost no one believed possible happened. She completely changed her body and her life. Losing an enormous amount of weight through pure determination, she achieved one of the most extreme transformations ever recorded. From a point where survival felt uncertain, to a story that proved change is still possible, even when everything feels lost. 8. Bitten by deadly snakes. Most people run from venomous snakes. One man let them bite him on purpose again and again. Cobras, black mambas, some of the deadliest snakes alive. Each bite could have killed him, yet he kept going until his body slowly adapted to the venom. 9. Falling from the edge of space. One man traveled nearly into space using a giant balloon, then jumped back to Earth. Below him was nothing but clouds and darkness. For over 4 minutes, he free fell through the sky at terrifying speed. At that height, humans can lose consciousness in seconds, but he jumped anyway. Holding breath beyond human limits. Try holding your breath for 1 minute. Most people can't, but one diver stayed underwater without breathing for almost 25 minutes. Motionless. Silent. As time passed, people thought his body would finally give up. But it didn't. 11. The cave flight that almost looked impossible. A pilot jumps from the sky, dropping straight toward a mountain range below. But this isn't a normal flight. He is aiming for something almost impossible to even see at first glance. A narrow cave hidden deep inside solid rock. As he closes in, the speed becomes terrifying. The mountain walls rise around him like a trap. There is no runway, no margin for error, no second chance. Just a tiny opening in the stone ahead. From the outside, it looks too small, too precise, too dangerous to even attempt. One slight shift in angle, one miscalculation in timing, and the impact would be instant and unforgiving. The air rushes past him as he commits fully to the line of flight. There is no turning back now. People watching can barely process what they are seeing. A human body diving straight into what looks like a solid wall of rock. And still, he keeps going. Faster. Closer. Locked on a path that seems impossible to survive. In the final moments, everything depends on perfect control. Because ahead is not open sky anymore. It's a mountain waiting to decide the outcome. 12. Shot like a human cannonball. One performer climbed inside a giant cannon. Seconds later, an explosive blast launched him across the sky like a missile. The distance was unbelievable. If his landing angle failed even slightly, the stunt could have turned fatal instantly. Cycling without stopping. Most cyclists can barely survive a single long race. One man kept riding for an entire day without truly resting. Hour after hour, his legs kept moving, while exhaustion slowly destroyed his body. By the end, he had traveled a distance so huge it almost didn't seem human. 14. The jump with no parachute. A plane door opened thousands of meters above the ground. Everyone expected to see a parachute, but there was none. One man jumped anyway. He fell through the sky with nothing to save him except a tiny net waiting far below. For 2 terrifying minutes, gravity decided his fate. 15. Lifting weight with a tongue. Most people can't even imagine pain like this. But one strong man pushed his body into something that looks almost impossible to believe. He pierced a metal hook straight through his tongue. Not for decoration, but for strength. Then came the part that shocked everyone watching. Heavy weights were attached to that hook, and slowly, he began to lift them. Not with his hands, not with machines, only his tongue. Every movement looked like it defied what the human body should be able to handle. The tension, the pressure, the pain, all focused into a single small muscle most people never think about. The crowd couldn't even react properly. Some stood frozen, others looked away, because it didn't feel real. But he kept going, slowly controlling the weight, holding it, lifting it, as if his body had rewritten its own limits. And in that moment, what looked impossible became a recorded feat of human endurance, built on pure pain, focus, and control. "16. Running until the human body should quit. Most people struggle to finish one marathon. One runner woke up every single day and ran another 42 kilometers again, and again, for years. Rain, pain, exhaustion, nothing stopped him. His body kept moving long after most people would collapse. 17. Juggling machines that can tear flesh apart. Chainsaws are made to cut through thick trees. One performer decided to throw 3 running chainsaws into the air at the same time. The spinning blades passed inches from his face every second. One small mistake could have turned the stunt into a disaster instantly. 18. Lying on hundreds of sharp nails. A woman slowly lowers herself onto something that already looks unbearable. A massive bed, completely covered in hundreds of sharp, pointed nails. One wrong movement, one small shift in pressure, and the pain would be instant. But she continues. Carefully, she lets her body settle onto the surface. The nails press into her skin from every direction, turning stillness into something extremely difficult to maintain. And just when it seems it can't get any more extreme, it does. Heavy concrete blocks are placed directly on top of her body. The weight increases, the pressure multiplies. Every second becomes harder than the last. Then comes the moment that shocks everyone watching. The blocks are smashed with a hammer while she remains completely still beneath them. No movement, no reaction, just total control in a situation that looks impossible to survive. The audience can barely believe what they're seeing. Because this isn't just about pain. It's about staying calm in the middle of something that feels like it should break a human instantly. And somehow, she doesn't move at all. 19. Walking above. Frozen mountains, high above icy mountains, a single steel rope stretched across empty space. Violent winds shook the wire, while one daredevil slowly walked across it without protection. Under him were cliffs, glaciers, and a fall no human could survive. "20. The man covered in flames. Fire swallowed his entire body. The crowd expected him to stop instantly, but he kept moving through the flames as if nothing was happening. Seconds passed, then minutes. Everyone watching thought they were about to witness tragedy live. "21. The man who held venomous snakes in his mouth. A room full of rattlesnakes is already the kind of place most people wouldn't even step into. But one man walked in like it was nothing. Slowly, he began picking up live venomous snakes, one after another, without hesitation. And then he did something almost unthinkable. He started placing them inside his mouth. No cage, no protection, no second chance if something went wrong. Each second felt heavier than the last. One wrong bite, one sudden movement, and it could have been over instantly. Yet he stayed calm, completely still. as if fear didn't even exist in his body anymore. Surrounded by danger, holding death just inches away from his throat, he continued the stunt as if it was normal. And what makes it even more unbelievable is not just that he survived it, but that he chose to do it in the first place. 22. Walking on a flying airplane at 80 years old. Most people slow down as they get older. They avoid danger. They choose comfort. They step away from risk. But one 80-year-old man did the opposite. He climbed out onto the wing of a moving airplane, while it was already flying high in the sky. No ground beneath him. No stable surface. Just open air rushing past at terrifying speed. The wind wasn't just strong, it was violent, trying to pull him off balance every second. And beneath his feet, the plane kept cutting through the sky like nothing was wrong. At that height, even a small mistake wouldn't give a second chance. But he stayed out there, holding his position on the wing while the aircraft raced forward through the air. The world below looked tiny and far away, but the danger felt extremely close. Most people his age would never even step near something like this. Yet he chose to stand on top of it. And as the plane kept flying, he remained on the wing, proving that even at 80 years old, fear doesn't always get to decide the limits. 23. Flying through solid rock. Imagine throwing yourself off a mountain at over 200 kilometers per hour. No second chances, no time to correct anything. That's exactly what one wingsuit pilot did. He wasn't just flying for distance. He was aiming for something that looked almost impossible to even attempt. A tiny opening inside a solid mountain. From far away, it didn't even look like a real path, more like a crack in the rock. But he kept accelerating toward it. The wind was screaming, the ground was disappearing, and at that speed, even a fraction of a mistake would be fatal. People watching could barely believe what they were seeing. Most of them thought the same thing. There is no way he makes it through that gap. But he didn't slow down. He didn't turn away. He committed completely. And in the final seconds, he shot directly toward the narrow opening, like a bullet through stone. What happened next looked impossible, as if physics itself had no control over what he just did. 24. Buried alive for months. Imagine being sealed underground, inside a space barely bigger than a coffin. No sunlight, no fresh air, no way out. Just darkness and silence that never ends. That's exactly where one endurance performer chose to live. Not for hours, not for days, but for nearly 5 months. Buried deep beneath the ground, he stayed inside a specially built underground box with only a small system to provide air and basic survival needs. Above him, life continued normally, but down there, time felt completely different. Minutes could feel like hours, and days could feel endless. Most people would panic within moments in such a tight space. The mind starts to break. The body starts to react. Fear takes over everything. But he didn't come out early. He stayed. Day after day, week after week, month after month, in complete isolation under the earth. No movement, no freedom, no escape. And when he finally emerged after nearly 5 months underground, it didn't feel like just a record anymore. It felt like something far beyond what the human mind is supposed to survive. 25. Jumping from a 19-story cliff. A diver stands at the edge of a cliff so high, it feels like the top of a skyscraper. Below him, only a small, distant pool of water that looks almost unreal from this height. The wind is strong. The drop feels endless. One moment of hesitation could break everything. But he doesn't step back. He commits. And then he jumps. The world disappears in seconds. Gravity takes full control as he falls faster and faster toward the ground. The cliffs rush past him like walls. The water below grows closer, but still feels too far to survive safely. People watching hold their breath, unable to even process what they're seeing. This isn't a normal dive. It's a fall from a height where the human body is pushed to its absolute limit. Then, impact. In a split second, his body hits the water at extreme speed, breaking the silence with a force that feels almost unreal. And in that moment, what looked like a simple jump becomes one of the most dangerous dives ever recorded. 26. Driving blind at extreme speed. A race car is flying down the track at over 300 kilometers per hour. The engine is screaming. The world is a blur of speed and noise. But there's something terrifying about this run. The driver can't see a single thing. No track, no turns, no visual control at all. He is completely blind. Inside the car, there is only trust. Trust in instructions coming through a radio. A voice guiding him left, right, faster, slower, moment by moment. One small delay in communication, one wrong instruction, and everything could end instantly at that speed. Most people couldn't even react to a normal turn at that pace, but he is relying on pure coordination and timing while going even faster. The car keeps tearing forward, seconds feeling like survival itself. And somehow, against everything that feels possible, he continues pushing forward at extreme speed, without ever seeing the road in front of him.